Hi, I'm Margaret, and welcome to Garden School. So what's the big deal about bees? Well, some people are very afraid of bees, and for good reason. They may have allergies, and that is nothing to be, to think lightly of. You need to take that seriously. But also, perhaps there's some confusion. Maybe they have been stung or harassed by yellow jackets or a wasp and associate bees with those insects. Bees and wasps are very different. Wasps tend to have a very narrow waist, I guess you could call it, whereas bees do not, and bees have hair. So what typically have hair? Those are two different physical distinctions between a wasp and a bee. But also the fear of bees, well, some people may just not understand about bees. I think just gaining a little knowledge about bees is a really important thing. And I've been reading this fascinating book that I got from the library. It has so much information about bees. There are over 20,000 different species of bees. The vast majority of them are what we call solitary bees. They don't form a colony with a queen like what we think of as the honeybees. Now honeybees, there are only 7 species of honeybees, but there's 250, 300 species of bumblebees, and then there are hundreds of species of stingless bees in other parts of the world. This has just really opened my eyes to look at this book and learn a little more about bees. Now, as a kid, my dad had a few colonies of bees at on our property, and I learned about bees, and then as a young adult I learned how to collect swarms. That was really an exciting thing and a fun thing. I did learn a lot. But beekeeping is a really wonderful hobby. You should perhaps, if you're interested, find out more about it, find out if you can do that in your area, or perhaps maybe not in the place that you live. Maybe there's an area nearby that would be glad to host your colonies. Something to think about. I kind of think about that too. It would be kind of fun. Well, let's take a look at some of the bees that I'm seeing here right now in my yard, especially on the Mexican oregano, which is really fully in bloom, and my lavender. The bees, the honeybees, and the bumblebees are what I'm seeing there. They're really enjoying that and frequenting these plants for forage. There's also some little tiny things that are moving too fast for me to really identify. Not sure what those are, but they're fun to watch. So let's take a look at some of the bees that are here today. They're probably different from the bees that you might have. Well, let's go and see. So if you want to invite bees into your garden or host a colony of bees there, think about what they're going to forage on all during the season. In fact, you can think about from very early spring all the way through the summer season, through the fall season, and there are even plants that will bloom in the winter that will provide some forage for the bees. So you do need to think about that if you want to invite bees and you want them to be sustaining. So visit your local nursery or do some research on your own to find out what you can add to your garden to provide forage for your bees. Now, as well as some flowers to forage on to get some food, the bees also need a source of water. And if you don't have any water available in a bucket or something, you might consider just a little saucer like this, shallow, maybe with a rock in there so they have a place to land and don't end up going for the last swim, if you know what I mean. Now, bees' vision is different from ours. They do not see at the red end of the spectrum, but the purple and blue end. But they also see in the ultraviolet part of the spectrum. I wonder what these things look like to the bee. Well, I worked up an appetite thinking and watching those bees. That was so fun. And so I am going to have myself a little snack. Now, honey is not the only thing that we get from bees, the only product we get from bees. There's also bee wax, there's propolis, and then there's royal jelly. That's what the worker bees feed the larvae as they're developing, and they give the larva that turns into the queen extra amounts of royal jelly. That is just such a wondrous thing. It's amazing how that society has developed and functions. Wow. Well, I'm going to enjoy this sandwich that involves a little bit of honey, yummy, and think a little bit more about bees and how I can provide food sources for them, forage for them, water for them, as well as shelter, especially for some of those solitary bees like the mason bees and others. Well, there's always more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye. Very good.